Amy, let me tell you about a magical place that is so exactly designed to be enclosed space, year-round fun for the whole family that I bet you already know what I'm going to say before I even say the name. Let's say it together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Great Wolf Lodge. You got it, Amy.
My kids loved Great Wolf Lodge when we went. You probably already know that it has a huge indoor water park with a wave pool, lazy river, a bunch of massive water slides. But then your pack can hit the other attractions because, wait, there's more.
Great Wolf Lodge has adventure-packed attractions like Magi Quest, a live-action game kids can play throughout the lodge, plus the Northern Lights Arcade. Spent some quality time there, so your kid who loves the lazy river and your kid who loves fantasy games will both have a great time.
Great Wolf Lodge also offers great dining options and complimentary daily events like nightly dance parties, all under one roof. Unpack the car once and you're settled in to have fun. And with 22 lodges across the country, you're always a short drive away from adventure.
We've both had such great times at Great Wolf Lodge, so bring your pack together at a lodge near you. Learn more at greatwolf.com and strengthen the pack. Hello and welcome to Fresh Take from What Fresh Hell, laughing in the face of motherhood. This is Margaret, and today I am talking to Carrie Cariello, Kate Swenson, and Adrian Wood, who are the authors of the new book, Autism Out Loud. Kate Swenson is the creator of the blog and Facebook page Finding Cooper's Voice. You will recognize her. We have spoken to her on the podcast before. She speaks regularly about autism, parenting, and motherhood, and is a contributor to Today Parents, The Today Show, and the Love What Matters blog. Carrie Cariello is the author of What Color is Monday? Someone I'm With Has Autism, and Half My Sky. Adrian Wood is the creator of the vlog Tales of an Educated Debutante. She has a PhD in educational research and contributes to Today Parents, The Today Show, and the Love What Matters blog. Welcome to all.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So let's start where we often start, with the title, Autism Out Loud. You talk about this in the opening of the book. Adrian, what brought you to the title Autism Out Loud?
I think we all really came to the quick realization that this book is about living out loud. And, we might have thought we could escape under the radar before. And now that we have these people we love in our lives, we definitely are out in public and we live out loud. And that was really important to us so that somebody might say, wow, that's me too.
And it's interesting. I have a child with autism myself, and there's a famous expression in the autism community: when you've met one child with autism, you've met one child with autism. And in reading this book, it's so interesting and I think important to talk about how autism takes many different forms, and that our experience as parents of kids with autism can be very, very different. So why don't each of you take a moment and kind of talk in as encapsulated a way possible, because we could certainly do 5 hours on just this topic, a little bit about your child with autism, what their situation is like, and what that journey has been like for you. Kate, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, that's so true. All 3 of our boys have very different autism profiles. And when we came into this book, we wanted to make sure that we gave space to each story, but make sure that we didn't say one was harder or easier, because it's not. We're not saying that at all. They're just different. And there's so many parallels that overlap. So Cooper's 14. He's an 8th grader. We just found out where he's going to high school next year. And no one ever talks about autistic children growing up. So this is a whole new playing field. I'm terrified.
Right. At 4 years old, we're kind of like, well, that's all we know about autism. Right.
It's exactly it. No one ever talks about it. So we're doing that. And so Cooper he carries the same diagnosis he got when he was 3, severe nonverbal autism with a language impairment. We've added a few extra fun things like apraxia, anxiety, OCD, ADHD, because we can't leave those out. I would say Cooper's thriving. That's what I try to focus my story on. He is thriving and he's happy, and we're a happy family. He has lots of challenges. And as he's getting older, though, I'm learning that his struggles, I worry more about people's reaction to them than what he's actually doing. So I find myself trying to teach kindness to the world and teach awareness to the world so I can protect this boy.
And Carrie, tell us about your son.
Yeah, so my son Jack is 20. He'll be 21 this spring. And just as Kate said, there's very little conversation about what happens when autism grows up. What happens with kiddos like my son after high school. any potential programming for them or where therapies begin and end and all of that. So I'm really happy to say that he's in his third year of a very supported community, and he's living in an apartment, and he takes 2 classes a semester at a local college near him. And he's just sort of taking these tiny steps towards independence. And it's just really a most beautiful thing to watch.
And Adrian?
Yes, so I have the youngest one of the group. My son Amos is 11 and in the 4th grade. And this has been a big year for us. He is growing like a weed. I think we've gone 4 shoe sizes since August.
Yeah, we're doing the same at my house. We're going bankrupt on shoes around here.
I can't catch up to him. And he is a joy and a pleasure. And we are really, right now, it always changes, but we're kind of in the throes of general education and special education, and him following this general ed track. We've had a boost in anxiety lately. So that's kind of where my mind is, and trying to handle that and figure out how we can have the best Amos that Amos can be and keep him happy and safe. I think I said to his teacher yesterday, I want him to like school, but I also want him to learn. So sometimes those 2 things don't look the same.
Right. Sometimes for all children, I will say, they do not look the same. Liking school and doing well in school and getting educated for all of my kids is something of a challenge. I like the way that you visit the moment of diagnosis with the lens, and this is something I often say to people when I'm talking about autism, that the diagnosis changes nothing. It's actually just the same kid the day before and the day after. It's just information. But I think for a lot of us, when we start to feel that like icy prick of worry that something's a little bit different with our kids, that it feels like the diagnosis, Kate, you say autism is a suitcase I carry every day. It feels like the diagnosis is the moment someone is handing you that suitcase against your will. But that's not actually accurate. Kate, talk a little bit about that.
The same boy that went into the appointment was the exact same boy that came out. And everything you just said, it felt like this young psychologist handed us this diagnosis. And I was like, oh no, we're good. You keep that.
We don't want it. No thanks.
Thanks for picking us. I'm honored. But it really felt like it had been tattooed on our foreheads. I mean, even when we walked out of the appointment, I'm probably making it up, but it felt like people in the waiting room were like, oh, sad, and I was making it up in my mind. But the other thing I'll touch about that diagnosis is I felt relief when we got it, and that always surprises people. I felt relief because I thought for sure they were going to give me a prescription and say, this is what you need to do now. Something is wrong. You do these 5 things and he'll be fine. And that doesn't happen. It's like, good luck. I wish you the best. And out we went. And I dove in like these other mothers did. I was ordering books and reading blogs and just trying to find out, but there are no clear-cut answers. I felt more alone than ever after the diagnosis, even though we'd been admitted to this club.
Carrie, talk a little bit about that as well. I read your piece a long time ago about seeing a girl check out Jack in the store. And that moment, we often say on the podcast, the pain is in the gap. And I kept thinking of that line when reading this book, that like, you understand the realities, but somehow other people seeing the reality is painful in a way that you're kind of never expecting.
I just want to preface it by saying that Jack's been diagnosed for almost 20 years now. And I didn't know a single person back when he was first diagnosed who had a family that looked like ours. I didn't know a single person raising a diagnosed child. The only exposure truly I'd ever had to autism was I watched Rain Man with my mother one day in high school, like on the couch on a Sunday. So it was brand new to me. And we've kind of navigated that journey for almost 2 decades. But yeah, Jack's a young man now. He is 6'5" at least. Big, tall, handsome guy. And I was out and about with him. We were doing some shopping and I noticed this kind of gaggle of high school girls and one noticed him. And I thought, oh, that's so interesting. But then Jack's autism manifests in a few ways, and primarily his physical attributes, meaning the way he moves, he flicks, he jumps, he paces. And so he sort of launched into that stimming. And I just saw her whole face change and her eyes dropped to the floor and she sort of shuffled and kind of moved about her her way. And I compare autism's tiny stings to like paper cuts. They're big in the beginning. They revisit you when you least expect them. And I sort of talk to people behind me on the journey and say, just lean into that. There's really no escaping them. They're there and they're real.
And Adrian, you say, I'd been raised to see success as the natural outcome of hard work. And I think for a lot of us kind of reading the book, hosting a podcast, thinking about how to raise kids, that sometimes autism feels like, whoa, I don't have a book for this. This feels like a completely different track. And I came from a family of extremely high achievers. And the idea that we were somehow on a different path was, again, part of this confusion and pain that came with the diagnosis.
Well, and I think we have a chapter on what does success look like, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. And you have the beautiful story about the dad talking about the daughter who is a checker at the grocery store.
I think for me, I had, different than my co-authors in my lineup, I had 3 typically developing children, and then I had Amos. So I kind of patted myself on the back for my parenting skills. Then this diagnosis came along, and to back up to that a little bit, I've never spoken about this. I was really ashamed that I didn't know. This was my background, my area. I had worked as an early interventionist. And here I have this over 3-year-old, and they say autism. And I think, what? Like, how did I not know this? And Amos also has a genetic disorder. So we were kind of following a path of some physical differences that he has. But the success thing has really been tricky for me, and really over the time of sharing our story, because Kate and I both, I think, say we went to get the book, and the only book I could find was a dad had written about his daughter with Down syndrome, and I bought it. I just wanted anything to grasp onto and to maybe help me validate these feelings I was having. But over time, I realized, boy, success can look very different. And I would argue that Amos is the most successful person in our household. I mean, I remember when my 9-year-old cried because Amos held a spoon for the first time, and marking those moments of like, wow, this is hard work and success. Very different than the way I was pushed to go.
Harvard or bust is not part of the equation anymore, as it turns out, which we will discuss is a gift in and of itself. Absolutely. Kate, you were nodding when I was referencing the story of the young woman who works at the grocery store. Can you tell that story? Because I feel like it's so meaningful about how we measure success for our kids.
Honestly, I was exactly where Adrian was and what she was describing. I was trying to figure out what success looked like for Cooper. For a big chunk of his life, ages 4 to 8, we stood still or we regressed. That's what it felt like. We weren't moving forward. It wasn't even baby steps. It felt like we were frozen in time. And I ended up at this event, some sort of event, and talking to this father who was telling me about his 4 children. And you'll have to read the book to get the exact story, but one was a doctor, one was a lawyer, one was something else. And then he just started beaming, talking about his daughter who works at Walgreens or a grocery store. And he said she takes public transportation and she works a few hours a week and everyone loves her. And I have goosebumps, and she's so proud of herself. And he said with tears in his eyes, everyone assumes I'm the most proud of my lawyer or my doctor, but it's my daughter who works this job because she had to work the hardest to get there. And I say that about Cooper. One of the gifts that autism gives us is I remember every huge and small thing in his life. Or with my neurotypical kids, I don't remember when they held a spoon or drank from a cup, and I'm telling you, I can remember the first time Cooper drank from a cup and crying. So it's this weird gift that you get.
The small victories are huge victories, as it turns out. I am talking to the authors of Autism Out Loud, and we'll be right back.
Hellions, it's time for some spring cleaning, and I don't just mean the coat closets. Doing your financial spring cleaning can actually be super easy when you let Monarch do your financial spring cleaning for you. One dashboard that gets your entire financial life organized. No more clutter, no more mess, no more logins scattered everywhere, just accounts, investments, property, and more, all in one place. Get your first year of Monarch for half off, just $50 with promo code FRESH. Monarch allows you to look not only at what you've already spent, but also to plan for the future. With Monarch, you can set savings goals, plan for big purchases, and notice spending trends before they become a problem. I can generate cash flow reports that show me what we spent this quarter, this month, what we're probably going to spend next month, and feel prepared, organized, and knowing how to plan for the future. No more surprises and a lot more clarity. try Monarch. Use code FRESH at monarch.com to get your first year half off at just $50. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code FRESH. All my kids learned to swim when they were little. It was super important to me that they be confident and safe in the water. There was only one problem with that: taking them to swim lessons. I mean, the pools were freezing. There were always cranky adults doing laps right there. And it was definitely not, for any of us, what you would call fun.
Amy, heard. But now there's Goldfish Swim School. Goldfish takes a really thoughtful approach to swim lessons, combining research-based teaching with a warm, kid-friendly environment that actually helps kids thrive in the water.
Every detail at Goldfish is thoughtfully designed to create a golden experience, from shiver-free, warm indoor pools to comfy waiting areas for parents to professionally trained lifeguards on deck.
Goldfish uses an approach called the science of swim play, which combines guided play with proven teaching techniques to help kids learn to swim, build water safety skills, and gain confidence, all at their own pace. Lessons are designed to meet kids exactly where they're at.
If you've been thinking about swim lessons or just wondering where to start, this is a great opportunity. Right now, Goldfish Swim School is offering a waived membership plus your child's first lesson free at participating locations.
Just visit goldfishswimschool.com/free to find a location near you and enroll using promo code FREE.
That's goldfishswimschool.com/free, promo code FREE. My favorite skincare products actually feel more like self-care, like they're so nice to put on and they smell so good that I'm actually happy when I get to that part of my day. And I swear that is how I feel about Osea's anti-aging body balm.
Amy, you are usually the lotions and potions queen on this podcast, but I have to say, hard agree.
Osea's anti-aging body balm is a liquid silk body balm that combines the lasting hydration of a lotion with the firming power of a serum, leaving skin smoother and firmer.
This body balm is clinically tested and designed to deliver visible results you can see and feel.
So we've gotten to use this product for a couple of months now, and I swear I have really noticed firmer and smoother skin, like on the back of my hands. It's like getting a mini spa treatment from head to toe.
Get a spring-worthy glow with clean, clinically tested skincare from Osea. And right now, we have a special discount just for our listeners.
Get 10% off your first order site-wide with code FRESH at OseaMalibu.com.
That's 10% off your first order with code FRESH at OSEAMalibu.com. So let's talk about the role of anxiety. I thought this was really useful, and I want to open up this conversation. We have a lot of listeners who have kids with all sorts of different needs. We have a lot of listeners whose kids are on the autism spectrum, but I think there's so much to take from this book just about parenting in general. And one of those things, it's not unique to us, but the iceberg metaphor that parenting experts often use, which is an iceberg you see the tip of, but to solve it, you need to get below and see what is underneath all of that is feeding it. And I think all of you had experiences with the comorbidities that were under some of the behaviors that you were seeing. So Carrie, talk to us about that. And I think it's useful for all parents to think about what is being communicated and what is the root cause underneath that.
Yeah, so we call that in our house the why behind the what. And most often the what is a behavior that's unsavory or inappropriate or new, just new. I was, again, brand new to the autism story, and no one ever warned me that anxiety was a comorbidity, ever, until we landed in a doctor's office with a boy who was pulling his fingernails out and his teeth out. And, our whole entire household was affected. In the book, Autism Out Loud, I write that comorbidity is such a dark, ugly word because it brings to mind death and grim and gruesome. And while anxiety will not be the end of Jack, it also doesn't let him live at all. And we opted to use medication to sort of smooth some of those edges. But I always want to emphasize to people that Jack, even at 20, struggles greatly with severe anxiety and OCD. And that continues to be sort of our below the water iceberg
that you're fixing. And Adrian, you had a similar story and also dealing with the genetic component and sort of researching what was underneath this.
Yeah, I write in the book that we were drowning. We couldn't get dressed. We couldn't get out the door. We were kind of this frozen in time part of that Kate's talking about. Everything was getting worse. And I think Amos was about 5, and someone reached out to me because of my page and said, you need to go see a pediatric psychiatrist. And so I found one at Duke Autism, and we got in there, and I write about this in the book. The doctor said, what you're talking about is anxiety, not autism. And that was the first time I had heard that this was a thing. And Lexapro happened to be the first medication we started, one of our many tools in the toolbox. And the teacher texted me that first day and said, Amos sat in the circle for 5 minutes.
When you're an autism parent, you're like, whoa, the square. I never heard so much about sitting on a square in my life. I was like, people, calm down about your squares.
Right. And I mean, like, who cares about the darn square? But like, to be in school, you have to sit to learn at some point, right? Some of these things we have to do. So it was big for me. And I think this was probably the most important chapter for me to write, because I felt like it was so helpful to know these things and to just know your options.
And that touches on something, Kate, the idea of bringing the world to your kids and your kid to the world, that there are two sides of that equation, because as we know, the world is hard to change and our kids are hard to change. And so how do you balance that equation of figuring out how much your child needs acceptance and how much it's education? It's a huge question, but what are your thoughts on that?
That is a line we walk every single day. Every single day it crosses my mind. So we are just starting to venture back out into the community. We're just starting, and sometimes I get some pushback for that by other parents that are like, I've always taken my child in the community. And I respond with, that's awesome. I'm really happy for you. There's nothing that we want more. We have 4 kids. We have a vibrant family with sports and activities. So it's hard having to constantly juggle 1 staying home or 3 going. Cooper's our nucleus and he's happiest at home, but he cannot live his whole life at home. At some point, he has to be able to go into the community. So we're just venturing out now. And I actually just had this talk with Adrian the other day. Would it be easier if we just put our kids in t-shirts that say, I have autism? I mean, it's crossed every parent's mind. Would people be kinder? And I touch on this in the book. I have a friend who told me that she has her autistic son ride in a wheelchair sometimes because people are kinder when they think there's a physical disability. And then it's like, well, why would we want, she's so torn. She's like, I don't want that. But I don't have the answers to that question yet. I'm glad you brought it up. I think everyone can relate. We're just navigating it every day, bit by bit.
And I think the individuality, there's a woman on TikTok who bikes a lot with her son who has autism, and he wears a bright yellow kind of pinny, and it says, autism be kind on it. And I think that there is some pushback that, like, why would you... It's a very hard thing to navigate as a mom. People have a lot of opinions on it, as they do about all aspects of motherhood. But it is the kind of thing of, well, my child doesn't need that, so why would you label your child? And so, Carrie, talk a little bit about community. It can be complicated. I think sometimes with other things, I'll use an example of like childhood cancers. There's kind of a universality in that community, even though people may have very tough diagnoses and diagnoses that are more curable or whatever. But the universality in the autism community seems a little hard to access to me sometimes.
Yeah, that's a great point. I often say what's complicated is that autism is an invisible diagnosis. It resides in brain wiring. It resides in neurological symptoms. And those often manifest as, like I've referenced before, behaviors or pushing back on social norms or questioning what is universally accepted in terms of like why we say hello when we answer the phone or why we say please and thank you, why such and such isn't a swear word. You know, those are all things Jack has brought up to us. And it's such a fascinating conversation about having your child wear something that communicates that diagnosis. My son, Jack, I'm thinking that over now. He'll be home this week and I might ask him, would you wear something that says I have autism on it? It's an interesting conversation. He often thinks people don't realize it. So he works part-time as a dishwasher in an Italian restaurant. And he's always said, my manager does not know I have autism. And we say, okay. Now, I've met the manager, and I'm pretty sure everybody's like on board. But this week, he texted our group chat and said, I'm going to tell her. I think it's time I tell her I don't want to hide this.
That's big.
It's so big for Jack.
And I have a new driver in the house, and we bought big magnetic stickers that go on the car, and it says new driver, because you want people to know when this car is driving around, like, please don't lay on the horn when he takes an extra second at the stop sign, because it's freaking him out and he's already having a hard time. And I think I see both sides of it, that labeling somebody, there's consent issues that get very confusing. I mean, it would be nice if nobody laid on the horn ever for anybody else and we all treated each other decently, but we kind of know that part isn't going to happen. So I do want the magnetic sticker that says this is a new driver, be nice to him. But I understand the confusion in that. Adrian, how does that play out for you in your house?
So we have kind of a new thing happening in our house. We have an almost 90-year-old. My father-in-law has moved in with us. And recently he and I flew together. And so I fly with Amos a lot. And my father-in-law, I had a wheelchair for because I said it's going to be easier to get through security. And when Kate, you were telling that story, it really made me think, like, it was so easy to get through the airport with him in the wheelchair. So for me, especially flying, I'm torn. And they're like, Amos can sit in a wheelchair, but I'm like, he doesn't need one. I don't want him in a wheelchair when he doesn't need one. I want people to recognize he has a different type of disability. And it's equally important than an older person needing a wheelchair. So far, I've kind of pushed back. We have used a sunflower lanyard, but what I've noticed is when you're out in the world, there's just no blanket thing that works necessarily, you know?
Yeah, it's tricky. This brings me to an issue that I am very stuck on, talk a lot about, is that autism parenting, all kinds of special needs parenting, but I think especially autism parenting. We were talking about mom's roles, and that we sort of flipped from the 50s, where autism parenting was you were the refrigerator mother, you didn't love well enough, you did something wrong, and now you have this kind of broken child and it's all your fault because you're lame. And then we've switched from that story to superhero mom who can find the magic oil that will save your kid's life and make them completely normal, even though we don't even believe in that as a norm anymore. And that place that sometimes we just want to be regular people. It's part of the suitcase handover that, like, I don't want a cape. I want to take a nap and I want to watch Love is Blind, and I don't want to be a superhero parent. That's not interesting to me. Kate, has that been your experience as well?
like, you're so strong. I don't know how you do it. I couldn't do what you do.
Yeah, but am I? I don't know. I don't feel strong. I just want to get through the day. And I don't want to be the refrigerator mother who is causing all the problems. But the other end of the spectrum, I also don't want, which is like, forget everything else you ever wanted to be. Now your job is to, like, lobby Congress, bring the world closer, find the right medication, do the 800 things. And so what do we do with those two sides?
I just want to be a mom. I'm serious. And so I have 3 other children who are younger. They are 12, 6, and 3. And I don't feel like I'm their nurse or their teacher or their therapist. I'm sure there will be things that will ebb and flow. I have no doubt about that. But I am mom with them. With Cooper, like you just referenced, I am everything. Plus, I'm his person and his voice and his advocate. You know, I just want to be mom. I'm just like you. I feel the exact same way. And sometimes when I get I've seen both sides. I've seen the stop being a helicopter mom. Why are you still climbing in the slide when he's 14? And I'm like, well, I have to because he'll block it and he can't communicate. But then it's like, am I giving him too much freedom to let him run around? And I don't know. And I feel like I'm under a microscope on all times with Cooper. And I don't feel that way with my other kids. I feel like everyone is so quick. And when you have a 2 or 3-year-old acting, and I'm air quoting naughty, autism is not naughty, but you're acting out, there's a lot more kindness than there is at 14. 14 doesn't get the same kindness. And, you know, people will be like, why aren't you doing something? Or they'll say things. And it's like, I know what I'm doing. Back off. I got this.
You talk a lot about it in the book, and it's such a very common experience, I think, is the curves kind of go in the same direction until maybe 2, 3, or 4 for young kids. And then there's a, I don't even like to say drop off, but there's a splitting of those pathways. Adrian, talk a little bit about that young kids with autism, the behaviors aren't so different. And then there does come a time where you start to see those paths diverge, and there's some pain in that experience.
I think that's right around when I started writing. And now I look back and I sort of tickle myself, but I was like, when he turns 3, it's going to be so obvious, where now I'm like, oh, I had no idea what 11 looked like, or
right.
14 or 20, we are where we are. But I think that it's always a struggle. Last night we went to church and it was like, do I work for an hour to get Amos ready to go to church, or do I just go? And last night I just went. I took my daughter and 2 friends and I just went and heard a service and didn't chase him around or wait for the book to come over the balcony. And he is welcome there. But I'm trying to give myself grace and saying, sometimes I don't have to do it all. I don't need to be super mom. Right now, we're focusing on going to school. I said, you're going to school tomorrow, and if you fuss about it, you'll never watch TV again. Now, I don't know if that was the right thing to say. He got out of the car for the first time in like 2 weeks.
Listen, it worked. It worked. We would probably say that you'll never watch TV again. It might be a little bit too big of a consequence. But yes, if it worked, we are not here to judge you. I once heard a lady say to a child at a playground, if you don't stop, we are never going outside again. And I just wanted to give her such a slow clap, because I was like, Mom, we've all been there. You are never going outside again. Christmas is canceled. We've all been there when we say the big things.
Well, my dad, I have this PhD in education, and my dad loves to say, I thought none of your children were going to watch television.
Oh, yes. The words do come back to haunt us, don't they? Only educational programming. I am talking to the authors of Autism Out Loud, and we'll be right back. Amy, when I'm having a good hair day, it usually makes my whole day better. And that's why on every day, I'm taking Nutrafol.
Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist-recommended hair growth supplement brand, and it's the #1 hair growth supplement brand personally used by dermatologists. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements are peer-reviewed, NSF certified for sport, and clinically tested.
Nutrafol offers multiple formulas for men and women, tailored to different life stages and lifestyle factors, so you get support that's actually right for you. Adding Nutrafol to your daily routine is easy. Order online, no prescription needed, with automated deliveries and free shipping to keep you on track.
Let your hair be one less thing to worry about. See visibly thicker, stronger, faster-growing hair in 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol.
For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you visit Nutrafol.com and enter promo code LAUGHING.
That's Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code LAUGHING.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
So I think one of the things that's interesting, helpful about this book is that everyone who has a child with any diagnosis, especially, or as we're talking about today, autism, your first reaction is, what does it mean? How is this going to turn out? What is this going to look like? And that moment of realization or diagnosis, there are so many references in the book, the crystal ball. Like, I just want to know that it's all going to be okay. And so let's talk about that for the moms who are listening, who are in that place. Carrie, what has that experience been like for you?
Well, when Jack was first diagnosed, I kept saying, I want the old mom. I want that mom like 5, 10, 15 years ahead of me on this, who can say, okay, puberty, you're going to want to like stock your house with this, or, this is what it could be like in young adulthood. And I am that old mom now. I have the young man. And so I always tell people behind me in the journey, just what you said, it will be okay. It's going to be messy, ordinary, challenging, long, and beautiful. But it will be absolutely okay.
And Kate, you talk, I think, really beautifully in the book, and when we had you on the podcast before, about not skipping the hard parts. You say, like, we can't move on from things that we don't recognize or accept. And so talk a little bit about that piece, because I also think I'm a person who believes in general that the overall public dialogue is not doing any of us any good generally. And I think that the dialogue around autism, that is, if a mom expresses any pain around it or frustration around it or difficulty around it, well, you're not accepting your child, or, and autism has aspects for ourselves and our children that are painful, period. Like, come at me if you want, period. And it's not like people say with a childhood cancer diagnosis, you're not allowed to admit that cancer is hard because somehow you're invalidating your child's experience. Like, it's hard, and it's okay to talk about being hard. I asked you a question, and now I'm on my soapbox, so I'm going to let you speak.
That was perfectly said. I'll start by saying autism parenting demands more. I want to be clear. There is always more that you can be doing or think you should be doing or worry that you're not doing. If I tried one more therapy, would he be able to speak? If I did this med or this supplement, whatever. And so you find yourself, at least I did, in this perpetual state of chaos. If you ask my husband, he would say for many years, I was just hopping from thing to thing to thing. That was what was happening. But the reason why it was happening is because I was too afraid to feel the feelings. I was too afraid to acknowledge that my son might never speak. I was too afraid to think that he might never live alone. And I'll tell you, 4 years old was the first time I thought, and this is going to sound just nuts, I'm like, I might never be a grandma. He's never going to get married. He's never going to have kids. And I'm telling you, the hate that I received on social media for saying that, you're limiting him. You have no idea what the future holds. And there's just so much shame. So yes, I had to start feeling all the feelings. I crashed. I burned. I started feeling everything. It's grief. That's what it is. And I want to just say this one sentence before I pass it on. I was not grieving the boy. I was grieving the loss of the expectations that I had. And it's okay that I expected my son to talk. It's okay that I expected my son. It's okay to drive and go to prom and move out and get married and have a job. I could go on. I could go on and on. It's okay. And that's my soapbox. I will say that you feel how you feel. You're allowed.
Yeah, I love that, because I'm in a position still that I'm grieving things that Jack will likely never achieve. He doesn't drive. He will likely never have his own child, or, all of those things kind of circle my mind. And people are very invested in Jack's success. He's been very successful, but I have to be realistic. And so I'm often told, don't give up hope. And I want to say, hope is the very air I breathe. It's like I compare it to barbed silk. Like I breathe it in and it's soft, and I breathe it out and it's spiky and thorny. We never give it up. But I also believe hope is meant to be fluid, because if I can move it from one thing to another, it opens up space, right? Like, he's not really going to drive a car. My husband still has a little bit of hope that he can make that happen. We're not always on the same page on that kind of thing. But if I can say, okay, I really can't count on Jack being able to manage a vehicle safely, but he can memorize a bus schedule, and he's fantastic at Uber. And so I can move that hope to something that's a little more practical.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. And the same way that I wanted my kid to be a prima ballerina because I got kicked out of ballet school because I was so bad at ballet, and that was going to be my revenge. Spoiler alert, it's not happening for my neurotypical kid. She's absolutely a terrible dancer, which is fine, But I think that there do seem to be guardrails around what we're allowed to feel. And that seems to me insane, I would say. Adrian, what has been your experience with that?
I think the world, like Kate said and Carrie said, they want everything to be positive. You share a lovely, beautiful story. Look who has the most followers on Instagram. It's people that look good, and it's just surface level joy, happiness, where when you really get into the dirty details, it makes people uncomfortable. And I think all of us would say sharing the dirty details has really brought us joy, because those hard things don't own me anymore. And you can't tell somebody how they feel, and I will die on that hill all day long. Like, you can't tell me how I feel, and feeling those feelings. And like Kate and Carrie, we all have big families, and I dreamt of taking 4 children to do things as a group. Like I didn't have 4 children, so I could leave one at home when my oldest son graduated. It was heartbreaking to me. And I think we want people to see like we're really trying. We're doing the best we can. And we don't know the answers. When they were babies, you kind of knew what to do, right? And now I've also 3 teenagers. So I'm basically just along for the ride.
You're in it, as we say. You are in it. Let's talk a little bit about that, the dynamic of having a child with autism within the family. You write a lot about this in the book. And I think if we skip the step of acknowledgement, we can't have any of these conversations. And I think the conversation around how one child with special needs affects the dynamic in the family. Kate, how has that played out for you and your family?
Hugely. So I always say autism is a family diagnosis, and I don't mean the genetic component. I mean, autism affects every person in our family differently, but no one told me that. So I truly thought that once I went on my own grief journey and my husband did, we were done. We were smooth sailing. I have a now 12-year-old who is a natural born caregiver to Cooper. They're 2 years apart. Sawyer's never known a day of life without autism, and his brother. He went through his own grief journey, and it was hard. We actually got him in therapy just so he could talk about his brother and share. It was one of the best things we've ever done. And so of all the mistakes that we've made parenting, the one thing that we've done right is we give each of our other children a safe space to ask any questions they want. And I'll tell you, adults are afraid to do that because adults always want to have the answer. You don't want to be embarrassed in front of your children and not know. I let Sawyer and Harbor ask anything. And what's come out has been beautiful and heartbreaking. When Sawyer, or my 4-year-old, was on his 4th birthday, he told me, I don't want to turn 12 because I don't want to get autism and lose my voice. Like he was scared of it. So we just open up the dialogue. We don't whisper autism. We talk about it. And I think it's probably the best parenting decision we've made.
Yeah, it's so complicated, and talking about your kids' friends and how they react to it, and our desire for control and to be like, you will never say anything bad about your brother to your friends. It's like, well, you do say something bad about your other brother to your friend. That's fine. But somehow our one special kid has to live in this bubble where you're never allowed to kind of goof on them because, wait a minute, that's not allowed. Carrie, have you had experiences like that?
Oh, 100%. I have 5 kids and they're all about a year apart. So they were always just sort of this pack that we moved around the world. And autism, like Kate said, was never a secret in our house. We acknowledged the gifts. We always said Jack has the best memory of anybody we've ever met.
If you want to know what happened 4 years ago on a Tuesday, I got a guy for you.
Oh, the last time you had a hot dog. He'll tell you. So we also emphasized to Jack, everybody has a mountain to climb. You're not the only one simply because you're diagnosed. Autism brought a lot of great things to our family. And I remember I talk about this in the book. I did, like many moms, always worry that the others didn't get enough of me on the days that autism sort of took everything I had. And we had dropped Jack off at his program, which was an incredibly emotional day. If you ever want to see a grown Italian man sob in a parking lot, try taking your diagnosed child to a community program. And it was, we dropped him, we turned to the car and went one way, and he turned around and went another way. And it was like probably the most poignant moment of my life. And it was such a testament to how invested his siblings are because they simply dissolved in that parking lot. My daughter could not breathe for how emotional they all were. So shortly after that, I had all 4 kids. We were sitting, the other 4 kids outside at a restaurant having burgers. And I said that. I brought myself the courage to ask the question, did I not give you enough? And they said unanimously, that is not how we remember it. We don't remember being thirsty or hungry for more. We remember always feeling like everybody was just in it together.
Adrian, there's so much in this book that we haven't even been able to get to in our short time together. I'm leaving it to you. You're the wrap-up lady here. What do you want to tell people?
This might be my favorite story in the book, and it's relevant to what we're talking about. When Amos was turning 3, he was heading off to the public school, and my other 3 children had walked 2 blocks to the neighborhood preschool. And I remember we were sitting around the dinner table, or Amos was probably hanging out, but the rest of us were sitting, and they were 9, 7, and 5. And I said, Amos, I was trying to be positive. Amos is going to start public school here in a month. And the younger two were like, oh, great, he'll go to our school. And my older son got up from the table and left. And we kind of finished eating, and I went to find him. And he was sitting in my husband's sort of den, and he was crying on the couch. And I said, tell me how you're feeling. And he said, I don't want him to go to public school. I just want him to be like everybody else. And in that moment, I said, I do too. And I really didn't know what his answer was going to be. I said, if you could trade him for somebody else, would you trade him? And he sat for a minute and he said, well, no, I've gotten used to him. And that's really life with Amos, right? It's hard, but like, he's ours. He's ours. And he makes our family so much better. And he's an amazing human.
This book is Autism Out Loud. It's a beautiful book for parents of children with autism. Also a beautiful book for all people. If you have a child with autism in your life, you have a child with autism at your kid's school, in your scouting group, on your kids' sporting teams. And so I really encourage everyone to read this book. It's so readable. It's very personal, and it's chock full of good information. So, Kate, tell us where we can find you and more about the book.
So I'm at Finding Cooper's Voice. I share mostly on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Substack. I'm trying to kind of dabble into a few more things, stressfully, all the places. And Autism Out Loud, it's on Amazon, where you can buy books. So we always love to support an independent bookstore. So check that out first. Libraries, grab it, buy it for someone, share it with a teacher or a therapist or a grandma. We've talked about this numerous times. We think this book is going to change the world. It's going to change how people look at autism.
Love it. And Carrie, where can people find you?
So I am Carrie Cariello. You can also check out, we have autismoutloudbook.com, which lists where we are headed in the next few months in terms of book tour type of stuff. And I'm mostly on Facebook, but I'm also on Instagram and Substack as well.
And Adrian?
Yes, I am Tales of an Educated Debutante on Facebook and YouTube primarily. And come on over.
And you're driving your car, you're running around after your kids. You don't have time to write those all down. They will all be in the show notes of the episode, along with a link to our bookshop.org, where you can find an independent bookseller selling a copy of this book. Thank you all for joining me today. This was a great conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.